So, it's kind of come to my attention, and it's been this kind of way for a while, that basically, I feel like the Universal monsters have been pretty much gotten the shaft for a while now. They've been basically been getting quite the shaft from not just their own studio, but from people in general. And I find it kind of sad because those are like the first movies I ever watched as a kid. You know, those are some of the first movies I ever saw growing up. And, you know, obviously, with the Universal monsters, they were the first, you know, they were the godfathers of horror. They were the first things, you know, people saw growing up. They had a lot of life to them. They still have a lot of life to them if you go back and watch them. And you still see, you know, how much work was put into it from Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney Jr. Yes, I know, obviously, you know, you can't say anything bad about the Hammer horror films, but I'm talking about all the way back to, you know, the days of Universal, where these, you know, these monsters, had it not been for Dracula, Frankenstein, the Wolf Man, the Invisible Man, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, yeah, we wouldn't have, you know, characters like Freddy and Jason and Chucky and all these other characters, right around to the early, you know, to other, you know, recent characters in horror, you know, such as Victor Crowley from Hatchet, or, of course, Jigsaw. Where would we be without these monsters? And I feel like it's kind of saddening that a lot of people have kind of forgotten them. And yes, I openly admit that you go back and look at the film, you have to have a suspension of disbelief to some of these films. You really do have to have some, you know, semblance of disbelief when watching these, because while they have aged well, you got to put your mind in the perspective of how it was in the 40s and, you know, the 30s, 40s era, and even to the 50s era of, you know, the monsters, of how the Universal monsters were portrayed, and how easy it was to scare people back then. I would imagine if you put, I don't know, I would imagine if you put something like, if you took the film Nightmare on Elm Street, time traveled, and had it play on play in a 1930s theater, everyone would be having heart attacks. Not just because, oh my god, it's a film in color, but also, what is all these weird things? Oh my god, what's the guy in the sweater doing to those horrible, you know, to those women? Why are those women naked? My penis feels funny. There'd just be heart attacks everywhere. Oh boy. And that's kind of the thing. And yes, I understand that Universal attempted to do with Dracula Untold, with Dracula Untold, that they did try to do like a, you know, Universal monster movie shared universe. And that had been done before in Universal before. So, you know, when they announced they were going to do that, I was like, okay, they've done this once before, you know, no big problem in seeing like a shared monster universe again. However, as much as I like Dracula Untold, though granted it didn't exactly break into my top 10 favorite films last year, I did have a lot of fun with it. It was a fun action film, and I thought, you know, for what it was pretty fun. Too bad the rest of the box office didn't see it that way. And yes, I know some people are still saying that the Victor Frankenstein movie may be part of that shared universe. It's not. It's from Warner Brothers. Because characters like Dracula and Frankenstein, they're all in public domain characters, but the design of the characters are owned by, you know, the classic designs of the characters are owned by Universal. So, what we're going to be talking about here, and I've kind of wasted 4 minutes just kind of blathering on. So what would I do, basically, if I could, you know, what could be done to make these monsters scary again? You know, what would it take to make these monsters, you know, what would it have to take to make these monsters, you know, scary again, to make people talk about them again as they had so long ago? And that's kind of the difficult problem, because again, you know, nobody's scared of Dracula anymore. No one's scared of Frankenstein anymore. No one's scared of the Mummy Well, I take that back. People were kind of scared of the first Mummy movie. That one did attempt to do some horror. And that's kind of the weird thing. Let me bring this up about the Mummy real quick. If you go back, including, you know, obviously with the, you know, the two films, I don't count the third one because the third one's terrible. of the Mummy films, the first one did attempt to be horror, a horror film, a horror action, I should say. Should say, tongue-tied. Sorry. And yeah, even after that, a lot of their big horror films came from from Universal. Were probably their take on the Mummy. They always remained. If you go back and look at the Legendary Collection for the Mummy, a lot of their films, even though you have to understand, the original Boris Karloff film was a standalone film. The other ones, like The Mummy's Curse and the other ones involving the character of Karis, were all like a reboot franchise that followed suit after that. So the Boris Karloff film is kind of a standalone film, but yeah, there's a lot of horror in that film, in the Karis films, which and then we had a lot of that with the Emotep movies. Well, they did turn into action films, but the first one did try. I thought it had to me at least, it had a good balance of the of horror, because there are some generally creepy moments in that film that are very well done. But for the most part, yeah, it's more of an action film than anything else when you really come down to it. But yeah, that's the thing. Where do you go? Because a lot of these monsters aren't scary, and yeah, Universal's apparently trying again to make these make another shared universe. They're saying, "Oh no, the Dracula Untold film is not the start of this shared universe. The Mummy is the new Mummy film with a female mummy," which is fine. The Mummy doesn't have to be a male per se. I mean, there are also a lot of powerful female characters in Egyptian history and in mythology. So yeah, I'm totally fine with a female mummy. Honestly, I'm totally fine with a killer female mummy. Because again, the Egyptians had a lot of mythological and real powerful women in their history, as well as their mythology. So again, totally cool with it. Totally 100% cool with a female mummy. So yeah, they're going to try again, and I guess if this new Mummy film fails, then you can kiss that monster shared universe goodbye, which is, it's heartbreaking again, because that's kind of the big hurdle, is that obviously they're going to try to go with an action route, which is saddening, because I don't think I've seen a legit horror, Dracula horror film where it's not like an action film. It's more like, it's not like a horror film. It's more like a big budget action film. It's kind of heartbreaking, because that's what they were built on, and they've been kind of relegated to, just being like action characters, because that's the only way to make them relevant, I fear. But they have, Dracula hasn't really been in a horror film per se since, I want to say, the Christopher Lee films. That's what it feels like, at least in a good, let me rephrase that, in a good horror film. In a good horror style film. Yeah, it's been a while since that been around. Well, since, Dracula's been scary since the Hammer films. So, the big question is, how do you go to make these characters interesting? Now, again, obviously, we can try the action route. It worked for the Mummy. They tried to do it with, Dracula Untold. Didn't go well. So, how do you make other creatures they have? Because you remember, it's not just Dracula and Frankenstein that are in their repertoire, and the Mummy that are in their repertoire. You've got the creature from the Black Lagoon. You've got the Wolfman. You guys remember the Wolfman remake? I like it. I like the Wolfman remake. It's not perfect, but I understand what they're trying to do, and yeah. I almost forgot to talk about the Wolfman remake. I like it for what it is, but yeah, it does have its flaws. And that's kind of the thing, is that I feel like even Universal doesn't know what the hell they're doing. That's the big thing, is that I feel like Universal doesn't know what the hell they're doing with it, when really, the Universal monsters were the reason, Universal got so big. And yeah, there are some characters that I would like to see redone again, like the Invisible Man. I mean, yeah, we had Hollow Man, but the actual Invisible Man. I would even like to see, the biggest one for me is the creature from the Black Lagoon. Where's his film? There's been talk of a remake for years, but still nothing. If anything, I would love to see, the creature from the Black Lagoon get a new film. Don't change the design. Please don't. Well, here's the thing. If they're gonna have to change the design, don't make it, all the way out there. Don't make it, just like 100, like really, really out there. Do not, like make it like incredibly fish. Don't make it all the way fish, because yeah, he is a fish man, but don't make it all like there was some semblance of looking human in that design. So don't go all the way like kind of like, don't make it look like the Monster Squad monster. Not to say there's anything bad to it. Just don't make it look exactly like the monster from Monster Squad. Is what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to say. Is that keep the design close, and if you can, do suitimation. I would like to see, a suit, but if anything, if I can't get a suit, I'll settle for motion capture, because it feels more like when when you can see an actor portray a creature, and then, when there's something there to be scared of, then you can get a better reaction from your actors. That's how I've always felt like. CGI can help, Obviously, CGI has played a big part in several films, Obviously with, like, Jurassic Park, another Universal film. Not exactly horror, but you get my point of that CGI can be a big help, but it can also be a big hindrance. See what I'm trying to say? Sorry, I had to get something to drink. So yeah, it's just a really it's a really slippery slope, honestly, to really play at. It's really a great big slippery slope with these monsters, because no one really, the sad part is, no one cares. No one cares, the general public at least. The general public just does not care about, the Universal monsters, because they've been kind of relegated to, well, jokes. Really, they've been... And even at a point, Universal acknowledged this with, of course, the Abbott and Costello movies. Not to say they're bad, they're actually kind of funny. But yeah, they were kind of, at that point, relegated to being like these comic book kind of story... and I mean like bad comic book stories. Remember House of Dracula? Yeah, we don't want to remember House of Dracula. Well, the 50s one anyway. And that's it's a really difficult thing to talk about, and it's sad too, because again, like I said earlier in this vid, if had it not been for the Universal monsters, we wouldn't have, Chucky, we wouldn't have Freddy, Jason, Michael, even Norman Bates, really. We wouldn't have, Leatherface, we wouldn't have all those other characters, because these guys kind of set, these monsters set the ground, the ground rules of how the horror franchise works. Yeah. So, it's always kind of difficult, really. Because that's the thing, no one sees them scary anymore, like, oh yeah, a guy who turns invisible. Yeah, he could, oops, excuse me. Yeah, excuse me again. Damn it, I lost my train of thought. But yeah, it's just kind of it's a sad thing, really. But I really do hope that we can at least get a good film with this upcoming Mummy film, and maybe that will launch a new kind of interest in the Universal franchise, in the Universal monster franchise, and yeah, maybe we can get a proper Invisible Man movie, or Bride of Frankenstein, or of course the Creature from the Black Lagoon. Out of all of them, all of them have gotten remakes and redos and whatnot. The Creature hasn't been touched since the 50s. Well, it got 2 sequels, so 56. It hadn't been touched since the 50s. So, yeah. Anyway, so I feel like I'm kind of reaching the end of my point here. It's just so what do you guys want to see from Universal monsters? What do you think of them? And do you think they can be saved? And what do you think of a shared monster universe on a whole? Just comment below, let me know. Once again, hope you all enjoyed this, and I'm sorry I kind of went on a rant, but I was watching, like, what was it, a few days ago, the Angry Nintendo, James Rolfe, the Angry Nintendo nerd, and he and his friend Mike were talking about this kind of subject, and it just kind of got me thinking, and after a while of just kind of thinking on the matter, I was just like, you know what, I want to talk about this. I really want to talk about this. So, here we are now. But yeah, once again, hope you all enjoyed this vid. Just comment below, let me know what you guys think of all this, and yeah, I'm out.